3 nights ago, I heard someone crying inside apartment 9C. That wouldn't be strange, except nobody had lived there for almost 8 years. The police sealed the apartment in 2017. No tenants, no visitors, no electricity, nothing. And yet, every single night at exactly 2:17 a.m., someone inside that apartment started whispering my name. My name is Ethan Cole, and this is the story of why I will never live alone again. If you're listening tonight, lock your door, and whatever you do, if you hear crying through the walls, do not answer it. I moved into Blackthorn Heights during the winter. The building stood at the edge of a dying neighborhood in Chicago. Tall, gray, silent, the kind of place that looked abandoned even when lights were on. The rent was cheap, too cheap, but after my divorce, cheap was all I could afford. The landlord barely looked at me during the lease signing. An old man named Walter, yellow teeth, wrinkled hands, the kind of tired eyes people get after seeing too much. He slid the key across the table and said something strange. If you hear noises from upstairs, ignore them. I laughed, thought he was joking, but he didn't laugh back. People complain when they stay here too long, he said quietly. Complain about what? He stared at me for a second too long, then whispered, the woman in 9C. I should have walked away right there, but desperation makes people ignore warning signs. So I took the key. Apartment 8C, directly below 9C. The first night was normal. Mostly. The pipes groaned constantly. The elevator shook like it was dying. And somewhere far away, I could hear television playing static. But around 2 a.m., everything became quiet. Too quiet. Then, I heard footsteps above me. Slow. Dragging. Back and forth. Back and forth. I checked the time. 2:17 a.m. The footsteps stopped. And then, someone began crying. Not loudly. Softly. Like they were trying not to be heard. I sat frozen in bed listening to it. A woman. Definitely a woman. Crying directly above my ceiling. For almost 10 minutes. Then silence. Complete silence. The next morning I asked Walter about it. The old landlord stopped sweeping the hallway. He looked genuinely nervous. You heard her already. There's someone living upstairs. No. Then who was crying? Walter swallowed slowly. Don't go near 9C. That was all he said. And for some reason, that scared me more than if he had explained everything. The second night, I stayed awake. Partly because of curiosity. Partly because I didn't want to hear the crying again while half asleep. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the footsteps returned. This time they sounded heavier. Closer. Like someone was dragging furniture across the floor. Then came 3 loud knocks. Bang, 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 directly above me. I grabbed my phone. Started recording. The crying began again. Only this time, it wasn't normal crying. It sounded wrong. Distorted. Like the voice was damaged. Or underwater. Then I heard something else. A whisper. Faint. Almost impossible to hear. But I heard it. Clearly. Ethan. Every hair on my body stood up. The whisper came from directly above me. Ethan, please. I stopped breathing. Nobody in the building knew my name. I had moved in less than 48 hours ago. Then came a loud crash upstairs. Like a chair falling over. And suddenly, silence. I barely slept after that. The next morning I played the phone recording. The footsteps were there. The crying was there. But the whisper was missing. That was the moment I started questioning myself. Maybe stress was affecting me. Maybe the divorce. Maybe the isolation. But deep down, I knew what I heard. And the worst part, a small part of me wanted to hear it again. 3 days later, I finally went upstairs. The 9th floor hallway felt colder than the rest of the building. The lights flickered constantly, and there was a smell. Damp carpet, dust, and something metallic underneath. Like old blood. Apartment 9C sat at the very end of the hallway. A heavy chain wrapped around the door. Police seal still attached. Faded yellow tape. The date read, October 14th, 2017. I pressed my ear against the door. Nothing. No crying. No movement. Then, I heard breathing. Right on the other side. Slow. Weak. Human. I stumbled backward immediately. The breathing stopped. Then a woman whispered, "Don't let him see me." I ran. I actually ran all the way back to my apartment, locked the door, closed every curtain, and spent the next hour convincing myself I imagined it. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text message. It said, "She knows you can hear her." I stared at the message for almost a full minute. No sender. No contact. Just those words. Then another message arrived. "Don't go back to 9C. I replied instantly. "Who is this?" No response. A minute later, the lights inside my apartment went out. Every single light. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. Then above me, footsteps. Very slow footsteps. But this time, they weren't upstairs. They were directly outside my apartment door. I stood frozen in darkness listening to the footsteps. One step. Pause. Another step. Closer. Closer. Then they stopped. Right outside my door. No knocking. No breathing. Nothing. I looked through the peephole and almost screamed. A man stood in the hallway staring directly at my door. Tall. Thin. Completely bald. Wearing a black winter coat. But something about him felt wrong. He wasn't moving. Not even blinking. Just standing there. Smiling. Then slowly, he raised one finger and pointed upward, toward apartment 9C. The hallway lights flickered. For half a second, he disappeared, then reappeared much closer to my door. I stumbled backward. My chest tightened instantly. The man leaned toward the peephole and whispered softly, "She told you my name, didn't she?" Then the power came back. The hallway outside became empty. He was gone. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his smile. And every night at 2:17, the crying continued, getting louder, longer, closer. By the end of the week, it no longer sounded upstairs. It sounded inside my walls. I became obsessed. I started researching the building online. Old articles, tenant forums, police archives. That's when I found her name. Clara Vance, 32 years old. Missing since October 2017. Last seen entering apartment 9C. According to the police report, neighbors reported screaming around 2:17 a.m. When officers arrived, the apartment was empty. No signs of forced entry. No blood. No body. Nothing. Except for one thing. A cassette recorder left running in the bedroom. The tape inside contained only static and a woman crying. I felt sick reading it, because the crying I heard every night sounded exactly the same. Then I discovered something worse. Several tenants who lived below 9C after Clara disappeared had suddenly moved out. One tenant attempted suicide. Another vanished completely. And one man claimed the walls were talking to him. I should have left the building. Instead, I went back upstairs. The police chain around the door had already been cut. That terrified me immediately. Someone had entered recently. Or something had. The apartment smelled rotten. Dust covered everything. Furniture remained exactly where it had been abandoned years earlier. A cup of coffee still sat on the kitchen counter. Black. Dried. Ancient. But one thing stood out instantly. The bedroom door. Closed. I heard crying behind it. Soft crying. Very close. Every instinct told me to leave. But curiosity is dangerous. Sometimes more dangerous than fear. I opened the bedroom door slowly and found nothing. Empty room. Broken bed frame. Water stains. Dark walls. And in the center of the floor, a cassette recorder. The tape inside was already spinning, but nobody had pressed play. I stepped closer. Static filled the room. Then a woman whispered, "He watches from the hallway." Another voice suddenly interrupted. A man's voice. Deep. Calm. "You shouldn't have come back, Ethan." The recorder clicked off. And behind me, someone closed the apartment door. I turned instantly. The bedroom doorway stood empty, but I heard footsteps outside. Slow dragging footsteps. Then came the knocking. 3 slow knocks. from inside the apartment. Bang, bang, bang. The walls vibrated. The lights flickered. And suddenly, all the doors inside the apartment slammed shut at once. Kitchen, bathroom, closet. Bang, bang, bang. I ran toward the front door. Wouldn't open. The handle wouldn't move. Like something on the other side was holding it closed. Then I heard breathing directly behind me. Warm, slow, human. I turned. The bald man stood at the end of the hallway, smiling, his head tilted unnaturally to one side. "She talks too much," he whispered. Then every light in the apartment went black. I don't remember blacking out. 1 second. The bald man was standing in the hallway smiling at me. The next, I woke up on the bedroom floor beside the cassette recorder. But something felt wrong immediately. The apartment didn't look abandoned anymore. The lights were on. Warm yellow lights. The kind people use in normal homes. The rotten smell was gone too. No dust. No mold. No water stains. The apartment looked alive. I slowly stood up. My breathing shallow. Confused. Then I noticed the television. Static flickered across the screen. Softly humming. Earlier, the TV had been cracked and dead. Now it looked brand new. The furniture looked untouched too. Fresh coffee sat on the kitchen counter. Steam still rising from the cup, like someone had just walked away seconds ago. That's when I heard laughter. Very faint. Very distant. At first I thought it came from another apartment. Then I realized something horrifying. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the walls. The laughter moved slowly behind the drywall, traveling around the room. Then came whispering. Dozens of overlapping whispers. Too distorted to understand. Except for one sentence. "He keeps them, hey?" I backed away from the wall instinctively, and my foot stepped on something. A photograph. I picked it up carefully. The image showed the ninth floor hallway. Old. Grainy. Like it had been taken years ago. And standing near the elevator was the bald man, smiling directly at the camera. But beside him stood Clara. Alive. Terrified. Her face looked pale. Her eyes swollen from crying. And written across the bottom of the photograph, in shaky handwriting, were 3 words. "He lives inside." A cold feeling spread through my stomach instantly. Then I noticed something else. The bedroom wall. One section looked uneven, like someone had repaired it badly. The wallpaper around it didn't match properly, and tiny cracks spread across the surface. The whispers suddenly became louder, closer, more desperate. Then all at once, everything went silent. Complete silence. And then, bang! I nearly jumped out of my skin. Another knock came immediately after. Bang! Bang! Not from the apartment. From inside the wall. I stared at the cracked section of drywall, unable to move. Then a weak voice whispered, "Open it." Every instinct screamed at me to run, but something about the voice felt human. Real. Slowly, I stepped closer. The wall felt cold beneath my hands. Almost wet. Then I grabbed the loose section of drywall and pulled. Dust exploded into the room. Chunks of plaster crashed onto the floor. And behind the wall was empty space. Not insulation. Not pipes. A hallway. A narrow hidden hallway stretching deep inside the building. Far deeper than the apartment should have allowed. My flashlight trembled in my hand as I pointed it forward. And that's when I saw them. Cassette tapes. Hundreds of them. Lining both sides of the hidden corridor. Perfectly organized. Each tape labeled carefully. Apartment numbers. Names. Dates. 7A. 11B. 5C. 9D. Then my stomach dropped. Because near the front, I saw one labeled 8C. My apartment. And underneath it was today's date. My hands were shaking when I grabbed the tape. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. A prank. A hidden camera. Something rational. But deep down, I already knew the truth wouldn't make sense. The cassette recorder clicked loudly when I pressed play. Static filled the room first. Soft crackling static. Then, I heard my own voice. Pause. Not old. Not distorted. Fresh. Recent. "I think something is wrong with this building." I stopped breathing. That sentence came from my apartment. Earlier that same night, when I was alone. The tape continued. I heard myself walking around, opening cabinets, pouring whiskey into a glass, even mumbling to myself quietly. Every private moment. Recorded. Then another voice appeared. The bald man. Calm. Close to the microphone. Most tenants hear the knocking first. Static crackled violently, but you noticed the crying. My chest tightened instantly, because his voice sounded excited, almost proud. Then the tape suddenly changed. A woman started screaming. Loud. Panicked. Desperate. Please let me out. Clara. I could hear her pounding against something, crying uncontrollably, and over her screaming, the bald man whispered softly, "Nobody listens through walls anymore." The tape clicked off, and from somewhere deeper inside the hidden hallway, I heard movement. Slow movement. Dragging. Crawling. Coming toward me. I raised my flashlight slowly, pointing deeper into the hidden corridor. At first, I saw nothing. Just darkness. Dust. Pipes running along the ceiling. Then the light landed on her face. A woman crouching motionless in darkness. Pale skin. Messy black hair. Eyes reflecting the flashlight. I almost screamed. Then she whispered, "Don't let him hear you." Clara. She was alive. My mind couldn't process it. She looked weak. Extremely thin. Like she hadn't seen sunlight in years. I stepped toward her carefully. "Clara," I whispered. She stared at me silently for a second, then nodded slowly. The hidden corridor stretched endlessly behind her, far deeper into darkness. Almost impossible. "How long have you been here?" Her expression changed slightly. Confused. Lost. "I don't know anymore," she whispered. Then suddenly, she grabbed my wrist hard enough to hurt. "He likes listening," she whispered urgently. "That's why he keeps people alive." A loud metallic sound echoed somewhere deep inside the walls, like pipes shaking violently. Clara's face filled with terror instantly. His coming back. Then I heard it. Dragging footsteps. Very far away. Moving slowly through the hidden corridor. Calm. Heavy. Getting closer. Clara backed away immediately, disappearing deeper into darkness. "You need to leave," she whispered desperately. "What about you?" For a second, she looked like she wanted to answer. Then her expression changed completely. She looked past me, toward the bedroom opening behind me, and started crying. Not normal crying. That same distorted crying I had heard every night through my ceiling. That was the moment I finally understood. The crying was never supernatural. Never a ghost. It was Clara, still trapped alive inside the walls after all these years. Then a voice behind me whispered softly, "She cries louder when people finally understand." I turned slowly. The bald man stood inside the bedroom smiling at me. The apartment lights began flickering violently. On, off, on, off. And every time darkness filled the room, the bald man appeared closer. Clara started screaming somewhere behind me inside the hidden hallway. The walls echoed with voices. Crying, whispering, begging. Then suddenly, every cassette tape around us clicked on at once. Hundreds of recordings started playing simultaneously. Voices overlapping everywhere. Tenants. Victims. Years of trap recordings filling the walls. The sound became unbearable. I covered my ears, but the voices only became louder. Then complete silence hit instantly. The bald man tilted his head slowly, smiling wider than before. "Do you know why people stay here, Ethan?" I couldn't move, could barely breathe, because eventually, he whispered, the building starts sounding alive. Then every wall around us started knocking. Bang, bang, bang. The entire apartment shook violently. Dust exploded from the ceiling. The hidden hallway behind the wall started collapsing inward. Clara screamed somewhere inside darkness. Instinct finally took over. I ran, straight through the apartment, toward the front door. The bald man didn't chase me. He just stood there smiling, watching. I reached the hallway. The elevator doors were already open, waiting for me. I rushed inside and hit the lobby button repeatedly. The doors slowly closed. For 1 second, I thought I escaped. Then the elevator lights shut off. Complete darkness. And beside me, someone started crying softly. I moved out of Blackthorn Heights the very next morning. The landlord disappeared 2 days later. No police report. No records. Nothing. Police searched apartment 9C after I told them everything. But they found nothing. No hidden hallway. No cassette tapes. No Clara. The walls were completely solid. One officer even laughed while taking my statement. Until something happened. While they were sealing the apartment again, everyone on the 9th floor heard it. 3 knocks. Coming from inside the walls. Followed by crying. They stopped laughing after that. I live alone now. Different city. Different apartment. Different life. But every night, at exactly 2:17 a.m., I wake up automatically. Sometimes I hear static inside my walls. Very faint. Like an old cassette recorder struggling to play. And last night, for the first time in months, I heard Clara whisper something new. Very softly. Very close. He found another building. If you enjoyed tonight's psychological thriller, subscribe to Blackwood Files for more disturbing audiobooks, analog horror, and midnight mystery stories. And tonight, before you sleep, listen carefully to your walls, because sometimes, something inside them is listening back.